Hello, and welcome to what I've been toying around with calling Idol's Library. I'm Idol King, and this is where I list a handful of books based on a theme. Last month's theme was Pride because it was June, but this month, the theme I've picked because it's July is American. Look, it's been 250 years. I'm a history nerd. It feels like a good theme to have. To start off, we have Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This book is about Alex, who's the son of the president. I wouldn't classify this as enemies to lovers. This feels more like annoyance to lovers, but Alex has this grudge, this beef with an actual prince, okay? Like, he's the son of the president, which makes him as close to American royalty as you can get. And he has some beef with the Prince of England. And this beef comes to a head at Prince Henry's siblings' wedding, where the two of them they end up toppling a wedding cake, and the press gets a hold of photos of this incident. So the publicity teams for both the White House and the Crown are like, okay, starting now and actually starting months ago, we're doing some background patching. Y'all are best friends. All right, this was some friendly thing that got out of hand. That is what we're spitting, and you two are playing along. You two are going to play along. And Prince Henry doesn't really need convincing. He's been raised a royal. He knows how it goes. Alex gets the sit down of, hey, if we don't do this, one, could be an international incident. Not great. Two, your mom is up for re-election. So if you don't, you could risk her losing the presidency. So no pressure. No pressure. Some of the other factors that are happening during this is Alex hasn't figured out yet that he's bi. So he's having to come to terms with that and figure that out. Henry knows he's gay. Like, he knows. He's been known. But he's had to keep it under wraps because his grandmother is the Queen of England. There's a point where Alex comes out to various people as he's figuring out his sexuality. There's also a very touching point towards the end that I don't want to spoil because I really hope y'all read this. There is a movie. I have some opinions on that movie, but I am not getting into that in this video. Alright, next up we have Bad Astronauts by Grady Hendrix. And this one's a little bit of a niche pick, specifically from Grady Hendrix, since he's known primarily for horror. This is his sci-fi novella. It's the republish where he's gone in and edited a bit. The premise is Melville, South Carolina only had 2 astronauts, but due to NASA's budget cuts and an incident, one of them is stuck on the now no longer in use International Space Station. That's not great. NASA has no plan to go get him because, again, budget cuts. We know how that goes. The other astronaut is his cousin, Walter, who, one of the things about it is Walter never actually made it up into space in the first place. He did all the training, made it into the cockpit, and then didn't go up. He backed out. So that is a point of tension in this book. Walter decides, you know what? We're going to go get Bobby. Who is we? Walter and Bobby's family. A bunch of rednecks in South Carolina on a defunct farm. Already shaping up pretty interesting. Over the course of the book, it grows beyond Walter's family, okay? You get people who know how to do math. You get out of work NASA engineers. You get rocket junkies. You get space hippies who are like, space should be for everyone, not just the billionaires. You get the drifters. You get the people who don't really have anything else better to do because the economy is not great. They're out of work anyway, and they're like, you know what? I saw this thing on the news. I don't know if we'll actually manage to get the rocket built, but it might be cool to be a part of it and be there if it does happen. And if not, I get to experience it and meet some people. You know, true American fashion, you get a bunch of people who are like, you know what? Screw the laws. Screw everything. We're gonna go get no man left behind. Okay, we're gonna go get Bobby. We are gonna go get Bobby. Honestly, this had to make the list because of just the truly American stubbornness, the community, and just the raw determination to make it to space. Okay? It is definitely worth the read. It is short. It is novella. Probably, it is the shortest book on this list. Next up, we have A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. I can honestly say I read 7 Days in June first, which is part of why I picked this up. I wasn't fully expecting the ride that I went on with this book, but I was sad, okay? The premise is Ricky Wilde is from this family who built their fortune in Atlanta in the funeral industry. But she's not too great at the family business. She's not too great at all of what being a Wilde entails. She is creative. She has an artistic streak. She wants to sell flowers. She wants to make creative arrangements. So while she's working the desk at one of her family's funeral parlors, she is offered an opportunity to rent the ground floor of a Harlem brownstone in New York City. So she decides, you know what? I'm going to take it. I'm going to give it a shot. Give it everything I got. And maybe prove if I can do this or not. While she's there, she's figuring out what she needs to do as a business owner. She's figuring out what works, what doesn't work, where to find her flowers, what kinds of flowers are going to align with her taste but also sell, how to utilize social media. All of this is taking place in the 2020s, okay? For anybody who maybe is watching this in the future. We're still in the 20s. She meets a stranger during her figuring things out in New York City. And his name is Ezra Breeze Walker the third or fourth. He's not sure. He was actually alive during the 1920s, during the Harlem Renaissance. He was a pianist. He moved to New York City to be a musician. This book has its moments where it's focusing on Ricky's story and the neighborhood that she's building her business in. She's noticing the gentrification as rich white people are moving into the town and forcing the established black people out. Okay? It's historic Harlem, known for so much black history. And on the flip side, the other perspective we get is Ezra's backstory. How he built a name for himself as this musician. And then there's a little bit of magic involved, because obviously how are you having this stranger? How are you having this guy that was around in the 20s and then back in the 2020s? Like, there is magic involved. I'm not going to spoil it, but he's not a vampire. I will say that. At a certain point, there's a few references to 7 Days in June, which, again, I recommend reading. But also, you don't need to have read that book to understand what is happening in this book. It's sort of, they happen in the same universe. There's cameos. But if you haven't read 7 Days in June, you will still understand the story that's happening in A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. Okay, so a little update. First of all, I've been to Miniso apparently enough times, I don't have a problem, that they gave me a tote bag because I filled up my stamps on one of the rewards things that was happening. My extra Silent Abyss. Gorgeous. And the fact I wound up with 2 of these? Wild. I actually made a trade with my friend Buttons, who does mystery box videos on their Instagram, Buttons Toy Box. So, in exchange for Silent Abyss, I got Melody dressed as a capybara. I love it. I do. I love capybaras. But, yeah, huge thank you to Buttons for the trade. And for such an adorable trade, too. And the other thing in this bag is I have another box. This one is Sonono Want to Tell You a Secret. And the options are all so adorable. But I will say, I kind of hope I get either the butler or the nun. Though either one of those would be awesome. But again, I love all of the options that are on here. So I'm going to open it up now. I got the butler. Right? Yeah. It's the butler. Which means, based on his little picture there, Ah! He's got a little outfit. He's got a little outfit. The hat is magnetized. Oh, look at him. Look at him. He's got little feet. He's got little hands. He's got a little pointed nose. He is adorable. Ah, I love this guy. Yes. Next up, we have The Phoenix Crown by Kate Quinn and Janie Chang. This book takes place like less than 2 weeks before the San Francisco earthquake in 1906. That is an important thing because it counts down until the earthquake itself. It follows Gemma, a soprano trying to reestablish her career. Part of the struggle she's having with that is she has these chronic migraines that make her unable to work for sometimes days. This book also follows Su Ling, a Chinatown embroideress trying to escape an arranged marriage. They have a shared connection through Henry Thornton, who he's a railroad guy. Like, he's a really big railroad guy who also has a tendency to be a patron of the arts. He also has this really big collection of Chinese antiques, which is where Su Ling comes in because he needs a garment repaired, and she's able to do that. She has the very specific skill required to do that. Other characters of note in this are Alice Eastwood. She's a botanist who's determined to study even despite being in a male-dominated field. And there's also Reggie, who she was also an artist under Thornton's patronage, and Su Ling is trying to find her. Honestly, this book, it fits the list because it's American historical fiction. It focuses on one of the main characters is a Chinese American living in Chinatown right around when the earthquake happened. Chinatown got hit hard during the earthquake, and people's reaction to like how Chinese immigrants were treated was not great. Even before the earthquake happened. It's also queer. Okay. Su Ling has a tendency to disguise herself as a man in order to accomplish certain tasks. Next up, we have Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. This one actually was an interesting premise when I found it. It's basically, what if the zombie apocalypse started in the middle of the Civil War? The book actually takes place 17 years after that, but the zombies are still a thing. She gets into like how America has responded to this. It's a YA book. I was trying to figure out how to describe this, and the best I could think of is speculative, historical fiction, and horror YA. It doesn't fit neatly into any one genre, and I love that. So it follows Jane McKean as she finishes up her studies at Miss Preston's School of Combat for Negro Girls in Baltimore. One of the pieces of world building for this is America's response to the zombies was deciding that they were going to send the children of Native Americans and African Americans to these combat schools so that way they would fight the zombies and protect the white people. I really appreciate how the book handles establishing how zombies work in this world. So there's things like older zombies are slower than newer zombies. That's pretty standard. In the beginning of the outbreak, an infected person might take up to an hour to turn, but by the time 17 years later, this has been rolling for a bit. Virus has changed and adapted. It takes closer to maybe 5 minutes. It's almost immediate. So when a zombie shows up at a dinner party, you know he didn't arrive bitten. That happened in the house. Zombies go dormant in the winter because of the cold. That means that the South are called the Lost States because we don't get a true winter. We don't get enough cold for the zombies to go dormant. The South has little pockets of civilization in the form of compounds, but they don't get a lot of we don't get a lot of detail on those until later in the book, where Jane meets someone who came from one of those compounds and was like, yeah, basically they have their own rules there. And it's like abolition never happened. And I was like, ooh, hate that. Not surprised though. In the course of the book, zombies are actually not Jane's biggest problem. In fact, they're pretty quick in the book to show that, hey, Jane knows how to handle a zombie. Jane knows how to handle a couple of zombies. The problem she has to deal with are getting white people to actually listen after she's noticed something that her training says, hey, this is a red flag. And they're like, why are you talking? She has to deal with politicians trying to go like, hey, these schools are a waste of time. No, not a waste of time, not a waste of funding. In fact, maybe some of the white people should also be going to these combat schools and learning what to do, change the conditions a little bit. And also, she's having to deal with some of these people having the very racist idea that people of color are immune to the disease. They are not. That is not a spoiler. They are not immune to it. She doesn't play as if, oh, maybe they are, maybe they're not. I don't know. And it's like, no. She's pretty quick to be like, that is nonsense. That is absolute nonsense. They are not immune. A black person will turn as quickly as a white person. Not immune. The author has in her note in the back that some of the inspiration for this was learning about the boarding schools that Native American children were forced to go to. She upped the timeline a little bit for her book, but she also gets into how black people were treated both during slavery and after it was abolished. I thought this was a very good book. I will say it is book 1 of 2. I have not read book 2 yet. The last book on the list is All the Blood We Share by Camilla Bruce. This is a fictionalized telling of the story of the Bloody Benders of Kansas. They were a real family of serial killers that lived in Kansas during the time when people were pushing west. Not much is known about this family, aside from rumors, hearsay. Bodies were found, but beyond that, not much is really known. So the author has taken some creative liberties, piecing together what people have said and picking which versions of the story that she likes to form a cohesive story. The author does a good job, in my opinion, of getting into some of her choices, what we don't know, like in the author's note at the end, which I think is really good, because it's like a family of serial killers is wild to think about. So the story focuses primarily on Kate and Ma Bender and the tension between the two of them. Ma wants to get back to where she can have a farm in the mountains, because they used to have one and they had to leave it behind. Meanwhile, Kate wants to be famous. She wants to be known. She wants to be performing on stage. The things she performs are, she knows how to make people think she's psychic. She knows all these various tricks and stagecraft in order to pull this off. Meanwhile, Ma has these herbal remedies. They help. One of the issues is Ma's medicinal remedies and Kate's fake psychic. Pa Bender can't tell that what Kate's doing is fake and that she knows it's fake. She actually plays up on how much he believes in what she's doing, as she does with anybody that she wants something from. Problem is, Pa's mind starts to slip a little bit, and then you have the addition of John Bender, Pa's son, and in this version, Kate's stepbrother. John has a little bit of an infatuation, an obsession with Kate, that when she wants something, she utilizes, but most of the time she finds very frustrating because he gets explosive and furious anytime she flirts with somebody else, especially when she's flirting consistently with another man. At one point in the book, she accepts an engagement from the grocer down the way, but also has her eyes on this widower. The third perspective we get in the book is this kid named Hanson, who he's naive in the beginning, but he starts to suspect something is not right at that house. Travelers start going missing when he notices light at night coming from their back door. He's noticing little things, and he's just like, I don't want to see it, but I can't not see it. And then the truth comes out. Honestly, it's a gripping book. If you like weirdly niche things from American history. That was July's list for Idyl's Library. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have an idea for a theme that you would like to see, put it in the comments down below. Be sure to like and subscribe. I am planning to do these videos once a month, so I am open to theme ideas, and also if you have a book recommendation, feel free to also drop that in the comments. I am always looking for more books to read, even though my TBR is extensive. But yeah, until next month.